one of the greatest maxims that he taught us as a Stoic was some stuff is in your control and some stuff just is not in your control. And Marcus Aurelius goes back on that, and he says we have the ability to accommodate, to adapt, and adjust. And in fact, he says the mind adapts and converts its own purposes to the obstacle of our acting. And this is the great maxim that I think is just incredible. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes a way. And then, of course, Ryan Holiday just took that last part and turned it into the obstacle is the way. There's always an opportunity to take an obstacle, something that's right in front of you, and use it not only use it to thrust you into something, right? A lot of times we see these obstacles and it paralyzes us. We don't want to do anything about it. Oh, I can't do that. It's too hard. It's too difficult. Too many people are going to be against me, whatever. Marcus Aurelius says, no, stop that. Use that obstacle as a springboard and go right through it. Don't go around it. Don't try to dodge it. Just go right through it. And you're going to find on the other side is a better version of yourself that you never thought was possible.
Hey everybody, it's Besta. I am here with a good friend of mine, Jonathan Hall. Hey, Jonathan, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing wonderful, and I'm excited to talk about this. We're talking about the obstacle is the way. Jonathan, you and I have had conversations before, and you mentioned to me, like, we share ideas a lot. We've had conversations sort of about life stuff a good bit as we've sort of had our association. And at one point I said to you, well, what are your books? Like, if, what books have inspired you? What books have meant a lot to you? Because I'm always loving to read and wanting to learn. And you mentioned 2 books to me.
Yeah. So the first one was I have them right here, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. And then, of course, Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. And the thing I love about those books in particular is knowing you after all these years, I thought this would be something that you would definitely really get into. And what it is essentially just taking the ancient art of Stoicism and distilling it down into what can be contemporarily used in our lives today. And so I thought those were just an awesome book. And I hope you enjoyed them. I mean, I think you did. You found some valuable lessons in them that we can talk about today.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, I've known about Stoicism and Marcus Aurelius and all this stuff for a long time, but I hadn't read The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. And I thought he did a really great job of doing what you just said, which is taking these broad concepts and making them sort of practical. You're in the middle of your day. This thing happens to you.
Yep.
How are you going to react? What are you going to do? How are you going to use these principles? And I found that to be really smartly done in a very helpful way.
Well, what's cool about this is, when you think about philosophy, we tend to think about, a guy in a tweed jacket sitting in an armchair, or you think about some old dude in a toga, in ancient Athens and everything. But like, what's cool about Stoicism is that you just nailed it. I mean, the word is practicality, right? And throughout the history of philosophy for the last, 2,000, 2,500 years, it has always been this sort of esoteric, out of reach, can't really overly lofty relate to it. But Stoicism just has a way of grounding itself and embedding into our everyday lives. And if I had to distill this Stoicism down to probably like a maximum or maybe 2 things, it would be the idea that it's rooted in the ability to understand what is in our control and what is not in our control. In every moment, whether it's a successful moment or a failure or despair, is an opportunity to practice virtue. And the Stoics are really big on 4 particular virtues: courage, discipline, justice, and wisdom. So it's about being practical. It's about taking opportunities to be a virtuous person, to taking opportunities to see obstacles as not as things that get in our way, but things that can thrust us into a successful life. The Stoics are really big on what it means to live a meaningful life. So that's what I think Ryan Holiday does a great job of, is just taking all those ideas, like you said, and distilling them down into these wonderful stories over the course of 3 different areas, and allowing the reader to sort of immerse themselves and go, hey, how can I apply that to my situation?
Yeah, I love that very much, the way you just described that. And the thing also is, I think we can think of these philosophies of living a virtuous life. And I think our culture doesn't talk that way or talk about that very much. We might talk about being a good person, treating each other kindly, whatever. But I feel like there's a need for a conversation about a virtuous life and really thinking about how are you going through your day? How are you treating people? How are you living your life? How are you reacting to things that happen to you? I feel like we need that a lot right now. And so that I felt like a good time for me to revisit those ideas through these books and then to have the conversation with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, when I go back and I mean, I read the book a long time ago, but then when you said you were reading it, I went back and read it again. And I sort of extracted all these, what I would consider the main points of the book. Maybe we can go through those, or if you have other notes, we can certainly go through those as well. But I think what's cool about it is that we can apply them to how, the average person would go about their day, right? And how they can apply this into their own personal setting. So do you want me to just jump in and just maybe offer a couple of those for you, and we can sort of
I would
have some
love
commentary
that. Absolutely. I appreciate you rereading. That's so interesting. And yeah, I would love that because I sort of have a similar set of notes. So
Yeah.
I'd love to compare notes. Go ahead.
I think we're going to cross a lot of, I think we're going to have a lot of overlap, which is great. So the first thing, what Ryan Holiday does in this book is he really kind of goes back and writes it through the perception of Marcus Aurelius. And so Marcus Aurelius was this Roman emperor. He's quote unquote known as the last great emperor. And what's really cool about Marcus Aurelius is that the power never corrupts him, right? Power corrupts. Absolute power always absolutely corrupts. It never, ever gets to him. And we have this because we have his book, The Meditations. And when he wrote this, he actually never wrote it to be intended to be published. It was never to be for an audience. It was his own personal journal that we later found, and then we put it into a codified book. And so what Marcus Aurelius does, he just goes to this book and he says, look, I mean, he's the most powerful man in the world, literally the world. I mean, it's the Roman Empire in, 200-300 AD. And so he can do anything he wants. There's no guardrails. He can live the life that he wants. He can kill who he wants. He can sleep with who he wants. He can do anything he wants. But yet here's this man who is so reserved in his virtue and making sure that he lives a good life that he doesn't do all those things. He's always fighting against the temptation to do those. And he just writes it down for us to read later on. And what's cool about that is, again, just taking Stoicism and seeing how can it apply to the most powerful man in the world, all the way down to, the single mom who is working 2 jobs to feed her kids. It just applies to every single person. And one of the things that Marcus Aurelius talks about, I think is really important when it comes to that Stoic life, is owning the morning, right? I have to get up. He talks about in Meditations, he says, he struggles. I don't want to get up today. I want to lay in this warm, comfortable bed. It's cold outside. It's miserable. People are going to be really rude. They're going to be needy. But he says, no, I have a job to do. I have to get up. I have to get after it. I have to make the world a better place. I just love that, owning the morning, and I think about people who are really successful. I mean, we hear this all the time through, different outlets of people who are really, really good at what they do. They own the morning. They get up, they get after it. They're very, very intentional. I want to hear your thoughts on that. I know you're like that as well. You get up and you get after it. I thought, well, that resonates with Tim, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, of course it does. I absolutely resonate with that. What's interesting, the interesting wrinkle on that, Jonathan, you might be interested to know this, is my husband and I live in Portugal. Mm-hmm. So honestly, all of our friends and clients and everyone that we deal with back in the US doesn't really start to get up and start their day until it's lunchtime for us.
Right.
And what we have found is we have this gift of the morning for ourselves to use however we want to. And so we have found the morning to be like this precious time where we're not interrupted. Now, when I was in the States, I used to get up sometimes at 4 or 5 because I had all these hours before I had to start interacting and being distracted. But the same thing is happening for us here. I think it's really cool. What I love about what you said about Marcus Aurelius's meditation is he's not only telling you, here's my thoughts about how to live a good life, but he also says, and here's why.
Yeah.
Think this way because it's going to help you in this way. And I love that it's very practical, thoughtful things. But he tells you, well, I start the day because of these reasons.
Yeah. And so we're not all going to wake up and have to, rule half the earth, right? But we do have to get up and do our job. We have, whether it's being a single parent, whether it's being a stay-at-home mom, whether it's being a teacher or a construction worker or whatever it is, get up, do your job, and do it well. I just think that's a great way to start the day. And of course, there's other parts embedded into this. Eat a healthy breakfast, make it high in protein. We can bring a lot of these other elements into it. Take care of yourself. He would get up and he would write. He would journal a lot on gratitude. He would start every single day and say, these are the things that I'm thankful for. Because when I go throughout the day and I have a miserable experience with somebody, those thoughts aren't going to hijack me. What's going to keep me grounded are the intentionalities of why I'm doing what I do, because of the people in my life, the circumstances of my life. The fact that I even get to get up is a miracle, So he talks about this explicit, which I just love. So, but that's a morning thing. You just wake up. The first thing you do in the morning, it's just be great, be happy, be thankful that you even got up and you can get after today.
Yeah, and set your mindset really saying is set your mindset and your intention for the day. How do you want to think and feel and act today? And you do that by establishing that at the beginning of your day. And then you step out into the world and you're ready to face all of the challenges that may come.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The second thing that I took, if you want to move on, is really comes down to how we got the name of this book. You know, the obstacle is the way. And the Stoics are really big, in particular, Epictetus. So in fact, Stoicism has been broken down into sort of two different periods. There's the Greek version of it, you know, when they it was founded in Athens, and Zeno and Chrysippus and all them. And then it took a little hiatus and then made its way to Rome. And so we have the three great Roman Stoics. We have Epictetus, Seneca, and then, of course, Marcus Aurelius. But Epictetus was a slave. And so he didn't have a great lot in life. And one of the greatest maxims that he taught us as a Stoic was some stuff is in your control and some stuff just is not in your control. And Marcus Aurelius goes back on that, and he says we have the ability to accommodate, to adapt, and adjust. And in fact, he says the mind adapts and converts its own purposes to the obstacle of our acting. And this is the great maxim that I think is just incredible. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes a way. And then, of course, Ryan Holiday just took that last part and turned it into the obstacle is the way. There's always an opportunity to take an obstacle, something that's right in front of you, and use it not only to use it to thrust you into something, right? A lot of times we see these obstacles and it paralyzes us. We don't want to do anything about it. Oh, I can't do that. It's too hard. It's too difficult. Too many people are going to be against me, whatever. Marcus Aurelius says, no, stop that. Use that obstacle as a springboard and go right through it. Don't go around it. Don't try to dodge it. Just go right through it. And you're going to find on the other side is a better version of yourself that you never thought was possible.
And it took me a minute to get this. You know, like when I saw the title of the book, I was like, okay, I think maybe I get that, but it's all about our reaction, right? Like, how are you? Here's this giant obstacle, this challenge, and then okay, how are you going to react to this? And if it's not something that you can control, let it go. You know what I mean? Like, don't get upset and mad and obsessed, and it can throw you. And I think this happens to people all the time.
Yeah. You think about like things that you can't control. I can't control the weather. I can't control other people. I can't control even my reputation, which is just a perception of what other people think about me. There's so many things, but yet we put so much time, energy, patience into these things, and it robs us of the things that we can be focusing on. And that was Epictetus's big moment. He said, look, you have to put into two columns, things I can't control, things I can control, and just focus on the things that you can control. So like, for example, when you're moving all the way across the world, I'm sure there were obstacles that were in the way that I know you had to. At any moment, did you ever think, okay, pull the plug, it's not going to work? Was there any moments like that you had to get through, or was it? I mean, I'm sure it's challenging to just pick up from and go.
No, it was a year of struggle and challenges and banging your head against the wall. And so you're absolutely right. There were many times when we had to stop and take a deep breath and then figure out what can we do right now to make this better or to get around this obstacle. And we always did. Sometimes it seemed rather miraculous when we finally did, but we did our part. And that's sort of your point. What can I do in this situation? If I can't do anything about it, then let me not focus on that, because that's out of my control and that's just a waste of my time.
Yeah, and maybe there was, I mean, maybe did you find the first place you wanted to live, was that available to you? Did you get lucky on that one? Did you have to find different neighborhoods or different accommodations?
Yeah, I'm specifically about where we ended up living. I mean, it was just figuring out how to get the visa process going and all the paperwork and hoops we had to jump through. That was part of it. When we did come down to trying to find our home, certainly we had an ideal place we wanted to be. And we put that out there into the universe. This is the neighborhood. This is the part of town we want to live in. This is the kind of place we want to find. And then multiple ones that weren't that didn't work, wait, this didn't work, try this next one, wait for the next one, whatever. There was a long process. Ultimately, we ended up in exactly the right kind of place, right where we wanted to be, exactly in the right location, with more things on our list checked off than we ever guessed. We felt like we did some things right. We got associated with the right people. We had the right help. We did our part. And then sometimes I think, Ryan, I called you Ryan because that's the guy that wrote the book. Sorry. Jonathan, sometimes I feel like it's really important to put out there into the world, and this is sort of a concept here too, put out there in the world, this is what I really want, focus on what I really
Yep.
want, what's my part in trying to make that happen, really spend my effort there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing. The universe just kept saying yes to us. It was
Mm-hmm.
amazing. We just, let's try this next thing. Oh, and it said yes. So we kept thinking, okay, there's something about this that's meant to happen, because the universe keeps saying yes. I know you found that in your life too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I know that you, at any given moment, you could have been easily derailed, right, by a letdown or by something that didn't work out, and look at what you would not have been able to obtain. I
Right.
just think that that's the most powerful part of it, is saying it's gone. I can't worry about that. I can't. It's not in my control. It's what is in my control. Let's move on, right?
Yes, and my husband is great at calming me down, because I can be the one that jumps up and starts to worry and
Yeah,
gets distracted, right? And then I have to try to remind myself of these principles that we're discussing. And my husband is very calm, and he was very much like, okay, let's take a minute, and then let's, well, what can we do? So
yeah,
as a team, we sort of made that happen. But I do think it's really important to, one of the big concepts I felt like of the whole book was kind of a little bit of a tangent from what you're saying, but basically, our reaction to what
yeah,
happens is everything, right? We can control that. We can't control what happened, but then we can control how we react, how we feel, how we react. Do we worry? What are we going to do next, right? Our role is what we can control.
yeah. So, have you ever heard of Viktor Frankl before? There's a book called The Main. Okay, making sure
Yeah.
that you
No,
answers
it's
for
for
me.
but you can tell them in case anybody's listening and doesn't know.
Oh, it's this is the ultimate, in my opinion, the ultimate testament to what you just said, the reaction, right? So Viktor Frankl, just very briefly, he's an Auschwitz survivor, and he was a very successful psychiatrist in Austria. He gets rounded up, of course, and puts into the concentration camp. His entire family is killed even before they get to the concentration camp, and so he's living these conditions. And he always writes up in his book. He says exactly that. They're in between a stimulus and a response is a little piece of real estate, and that's one's ability to decide how to react, right? One's ability to choose. And he says they took everything from me. They took my physical freedom, my personal freedom, my family. They humiliated me. I mean, they did everything bad to me, but they could not. One thing they could never ever take from me was my ability to choose how I react in that particular moment. And that is, you're talking about. Luckily, most of us will never have to deal with something quite severe yet. However, when we are stopping traffic, or when we're, a crazy driver cuts us off, or whatever happens in our mundane or everyday lives, we react with just so much hostility and anger and built up. Here's Viktor Frankl in the worst conditions one can ever possibly imagine. He's still saying, even keeled, you cannot take this last bit of freedom from me, the ability to choose how. And he credits that, and in fact, when he survives, he credits that thinking with how he got through surviving through Auschwitz. I mean, luckily he made it through, but he said, he quotes in the book, he was saying he would see people just, on a Monday, they'd be good to go. They think they're going to get through it. On a Tuesday morning, they would give up. They would just lose hope, and they'd be dead by Tuesday night. Not because of, anything that they didn't like cremated themselves, but they would just give up, and bodies would just give out. He said, I could never do that. I had to always stay. I'm going to control how I react to this. And the last part of what Viktor Frankl gave us is this ability to think about the why. Why am I going to get out of here? And then Nietzsche says, anybody who has a strong enough why can bear almost anyhow. And again, these are massive. Like, you're talking about the worst situation you can find us in. If he can do that, certainly I can do that at the grocery store. Right? Certainly I can do that on I-4 with bad drivers all around me. I think that's just a really cool way to sort of, it's a heuristic to think about how to live my life in accordance with those principles.
Well, and that's the beauty and benefit of studying these kinds of principles and theories and belief systems, is because they really can help us have a better day, have a better life, be more productive. I mean, imagine, do you want to go through your life upset and worried and angry all the time, or do you want to have a nice day? And we are all living in this world right now that there's lots of reasons for you to be angry and outraged and upset. But okay, is this how I want my day to be? right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what can I do, right? So then you step back. Well, what's my part? What can I do? Okay, I
Yep.
can take these actions. I can support these groups. I can send my money over here. I can go over here and volunteer, whatever. But then I also can go through my life productively, focusing on my part, what I can actually control. And this is Marcus Aurelius' whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, how are you thinking about this? Don't let the other stuff derail you and waste your time and your energy.
Yep, 100%. I love it. The next thing that I got was he was really big about it being intentional. He would say, stop putting things off. It's all about now. It's all you have, right? And he talks about discipline. Stop procrastinating. He says, you could be good today. Instead, you choose to be good tomorrow. And I'll start, we think about like today, like you'll start the novel later. You'll start the diet next week. You'll move to Portugal in 5 years. You'll do these things like you don't know what you're going to have. The only thing you have is right now. And Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, is quoted by saying that this is the one thing all fools have in common is they're always putting things off. And I think that's really, really powerful. Now, the difference between being intentional about what you're going to do and getting all of your ducks in a row and moving that direction, you're still being intentional to go in that direction, right? But it's the people who just say, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. Some later is never going to get here. And Marcus Aurelius, he always says, do things action by action and step by step. And I think that's really, really powerful. It's just you only have, the only thing you have right now is now, the power of right now. So I think that's interesting. And of course, this jives so well with your current situation. It's like that move is like, I don't know how much that played a role into you deciding to go over there, but it's something that I think overlays quite nicely.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And we were very intentional and focused on it every single day, right? This goal. But Jonathan, I've known you for a while now, and I have seen you really grow and blossom. And it's been exciting to see your life expand and become bigger and bigger and more and more wonderful. Can you give me an example of something in your life that you at one point were procrastinating about and then you stopped?
Oh, okay. So yeah, easily. I mean, going to the gym, I think was something. I never had time. I mean, I never ever had time. But now I had time. I just chose not to fill that time with going to the gym or eating healthy. And then so I remember. So I was a high school band director for 10 years, and then I just left that world to go work. So I'm pursuing my doctorate right now. So I'm still in grad school. I'm writing drill for a lot of different bands, and that's where our worlds sort of merge together. Still teaching, but it opened up that space. And I remember one day just not being happy with how I felt and how I looked, and this is how it started. I would always think to myself, I would think, okay, well, someday I'll get a gym membership, and then someday I'll go to the gym, and then I'll just keep putting it. But right now I got to do this. I got to do this. And I just got tired of that. I'm done doing that. And I remember vividly coming home. I had took my daughter to her little soccer practice, and I came home and I just didn't like anything about how I was feeling or looking. And I just started doing push-ups in my living room. I just started going right then and there. I'm like, if I'm never going to do it unless I just start. It wasn't the perfect situation, wasn't the perfect conditions. The kids needed me, my wife needed me, the yard needed me. Just going to do some push-ups right now and get, what does that feel like? And then that blossomed into a year and a half of just doing home workouts, body weight stuff and things like that. And then finally, 2 years later, finally got into the gym and have not looked back. It's if it's not every day, it's every other day doing full body workouts, but that intentionality. And now just the way you feel, when you're going to the gym and you're eating healthy. So now you bring all the other elements into it. So not only going to the gym, but you're eating nutritiously. That becomes a radiation to the rest of the family. This is how we're going to eat. This is how we're going to drink all this water, all those different things. So certainly, stop putting things off. Just do it now, because here's the deal. If I would have kept living that lifestyle, it would have snowballed over time. Like, I don't want to be, in my 70s and my 60s and not be able to move my body. I want to be able to pick my grandkids. I want to be able to pick my own kids up now. And I've got to take care of that body right now. That's all I have is right now.
Yeah. And the great thing is, again, it's all about how you're thinking about it. How are you framing this? This is sort of one of the premises of this whole conversation is, okay, here's this thing. How are you going to think about it now? Right. And maybe we've all been thinking about something a certain way. You were like, well, I don't have time. And it's and then one day you're like, wait a minute. This is going to be worth my time. And of course, what we all find out when we start to exercise normally and regularly is, oh, wow, this makes me do better work. This makes me a better father. This makes me more present, able to do more. So it's not wasted time. It's actually time that's an investment in then making you better at all the other things you do in your life. Just as one example, you're like the poster child for that, Jonathan. And I love seeing that in you. You know, you've really blossomed in that way. And I think this is so important. It's like, don't put it off, but like take that first step. And you even just described, it's not like the next day you were in the gym, you know,
Yeah.
doing bench pressing 500 pounds, but you were like, I took the next step. I took the next step. I took the next step, building new habits, and then you get there. It's interesting you say that, because one of my real goals now that I'm living in Lisbon is it's a city of hills. It's built in 7 hills, and everything is going up a hill or going up steps.
Right.
And I decided to embrace this. I think a lot of people are very frustrated by it. You see tourists that come in there, like, oh, be ready to walk up those steps. And I'm like, man, bring on those steps. Like, I am all about steps, because I am like, I want to be able to go up those steps when I'm in my 90s, right? I want to be able to move and be strong enough to do everything and not worry about falling and all that stuff. Yep. So the idea of taking those steps, going up those hills, going to the gym, doing my martial arts, like there's an intention of, because how do I want to feel? What do I want to be able to do? What kind of life do I want to have all the way to the end? And so again, it's about a mindset of this benefits me. And I look at anytime I walk up to one of those giant steps that you find here in Lisbon, and I'm like, bring it on, maybe. Oh, the escalator's out. Yes, sir. I'm going up.
Let's go.
And it's just sort of like it brings an energy and an enthusiasm.
The energy.
Life to the way you're approaching your life. And this is the very concept we're talking about. Those steps are an obstacle to a lot of people, and they could be to me, but instead I see it as an opportunity.
Oh, an opportunity to grow in other areas. The destination is to get to over here, but you're going to get so much more out of that journey, right? The health benefits, the discipline of it, the fact that you overcame something. I mean, there's so many different residual effects. It reminds me of so in the book, he tells a story about Amelia Earhart. I think it's a fascinating story. So here she was. This is one of the most regressive times in American history, where women were relegated to second-class citizens, and they were going to fly someone across the Atlantic Ocean, right? And they wanted her to come in and be the first female to fly across the ocean, but she wasn't going to get to fly the plane. She wasn't going to get to touch the controls. She wasn't going to get hardly any of the publicity. It was going to be a male flyer, all these things. And she could have said, no, I'm not doing that. That's ridiculous. That's stupid. But she said, you know what? No, the situation's not perfect, but it's a foot in the door. If I can just get on that plane and get in there and do it, then it may open up other opportunities for me to do it. And then, of course, she became the first solo female flyer to do the transatlantic flight. But had she said no to that first iteration of it, I think she would have missed out on another opportunity to become who she was. I think that was such a cool way to illustrate that point of stop putting things off. It's all about now.
Well, and the situation doesn't have to be perfect for it to be the next step, and for you to take that next step through that situation. It's sort of like if you're a young drill rider wanting to work with marching bands, you're not going to start writing for somebody that's going to Grand Nationals and going to place, and like you're going to write for whatever band you can get in on, and like, all right, what can I do for these kids? What can I learn here? How can I help them have a great? And then the next step and the next step. So it's
and you wouldn't want
examples.
You wouldn't want to write for the big top 12,
right? They would eat you alive. Yeah, no way you're ready.
You're going to set yourself up for absolute in so many ways, not only just the drill itself, but dealing with those directors and dealing with the pressure. I mean, that is something you're just not ready for. So just take the ones that aren't perfect and make them really, really, really good, and then work your way into that next role.
Start that growth. Yep. You have to start from where you are and take the next step. So I love it. Yeah.
So moving on, if it's okay, we'll move on to the next one. Awesome. He talks a lot about leadership. And this is a big one, I think, in my life when I talk about student leaderships, especially in the marching arts. But he says leaders is very simple, right? Leaders take responsibility. This is he labels it extreme ownership. Everything that happens in the Roman Empire is on him. He's culpable for everything. So if some general, 500 miles away or 1,000 miles away makes a mistake and does something wrong, instead of getting mad at the general and saying, why'd you do this, or this, he says, what did I do? How could I put that general in a better position? And he takes extreme ownership with everything, which is what awesome leadership does. He talks about ancient Spartans and what they do. He says that when the ancient Spartans would have company, come to where they were, they would always put the stranger or the company in the shade while the Spartans sat in the sun when they were dining. They were discomfort while the other people were comfort. We're in a comfortable situation. And again, that's something we don't see that a lot with leadership, especially in the political landscape, right? It's all about me. It's very self-centered. True leadership, as Marcus Aurelius would describe it, is this complete opposite. It's about putting everybody else first. It's, leadership eats last. He was really, really big on leadership.
And each of us in our lives has a way to do that, right? Mm-hmm. Like you may not be in charge of some giant company or in charge of the planet or something, but you're in charge of something. And you can make a difference in the way you interact with everybody in your life and anybody that you're helping or you might be in charge of. And it's like it's personalizing it to your own personal thing. And I think this is the power of this whole Stoic philosophy thing is like, this applies to me. It applies to every single person if they will find the way to stop and say, okay, well, how does this apply to me in my situation? I think sometimes it's hard to, well, I'm not a leader of a lot of things or whatever, but where are you? Where can you put this to work for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's all, you nailed it perfectly. You may not be a leader or CEO of a major, Fortune 500 company, but you are maybe the leader of your family, like, or maybe you're a father, or maybe you're a teacher, or maybe you run a small business with 4 employees, whatever it is. You have an opportunity to act in accordance to virtue, as Marcus Aurelius would put it, and put yourself in the discomfort, put them in the comfort, and be the buffer. I work in the school system, and to me, some of the people who don't understand education are the ones who are furthest removed from it at a district and administrative level. And they do some are really, really good at it. Some don't do such a good job of being a buffer between all of the regressive, disgusting policies that come down from the political, pundits on high. And they absorb that and they do not pass it on to their teachers or to their students. They find ways to be that buffer. And I think that's what really good leadership is taking all of that. I'm going to protect you guys on. We're going to do this. I'm going to take this on. And if something doesn't work, again, it's that extreme ownership concept. Then I'm going to be the one to who's culpable for ultimately everything, instead of placing the blame on everything. Or if someone does mess up, you put your arm around them, you bring them up, and you say, look, we're going to work on this together, right? It's that synergistic compatibility that Marcus Aurelius was always just really pushing forth in his book.
Yeah. And, I think the other thing that I got from the book too, in this same arena, is my understanding is Marcus Aurelius ruled alongside another ruler who did not follow this philosophy at all, but was out there drinking and partying and being, and not doing any of these things. That did not stop him from following his own philosophy. And sort of my point for that today is we see a lot of bad actors and bad examples all around us of people who are not living in any sort of virtuous way. So what? The point is, I know better for me and my world and the people in my world. I can do better, even if there are bad examples all around me, even at a very high level. And I think this is important to keep in mind right now.
Yeah. Well, even so, I love that you brought that up. And I'll just punctuate the point with this. That same leader that he ruled alongside at one point began to take over the empire. He said that Marcus Aurelius, he falsely claimed that Marcus Aurelius had died and he was going to take over the entire thing, which is obviously a terrible thing to do. And so Marcus Aurelius got wind of this, and here's a man who somebody else is trying to take over everything, and they're going to try to get rid of all his people, and they're going to just take over it all. And he says, look, what we're going to do is we're going to go find him, but we're not going to kill him. We're not going to punish. We're going to try to exercise forgiveness. We're going to take him and we're going to say, no, I'm not dead. I still my kingdom. I'm still here for the people. And instead of just, back then you just kill the guy, right? That's what you would do. You just get rid of him. And any other people who were supportive of him, he says, no, we're going to practice forgiveness. And so, you just think, man, how in the world can somebody still think that way after being completely, blindsided by the circumstance? You never let it get to him.
Right, because ultimately his philosophy was, I am always going to do the right thing.
Yeah.
I am always going to do the virtuous thing. I'm going to follow my principles that I believe in all the time. And I feel like this is something that's great to be reminded of right now.
Yeah.
Like this idea, one of the things that I made notes of that they constantly hammer home in the book is my job is to do my best right now.
Yep.
Whatever my next task is, whatever's in front of me right now, making a sandwich, doing a report, going to the store, talking to my employees, I'm going to do my absolute best at this thing right now. And I love that idea of just always doing your best and trying to, the best I can today. Some days I could do better than other days, but I'm still doing my best.
Yep, absolutely. Love it. The next one, he talks about domesticating your emotions, which is basically discarding your anxiety. Seneca talks about, we don't suffer unnecessarily. Things are the cause of anxiety, but we are we have to react to those in such a way that we're not going to write a story that doesn't exist in our minds, right? So the situation will be presented to us, and then it is us who thinks about it, internalizes it, and can essentially write a whole story that doesn't even exist. I think Seneca's quote is something along the lines of, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality," right? And Marcus Aurelius, his famous quote on that was, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And again, it just comes down to this idea. I mean, we said it before. It just rings true. The through line is how you're going to react to everything. And I think, when we see people or even ourselves, we get overly emotional unnecessarily. We are suffering in a way that we really don't have to yet. Now, it may be the case that is bad. It may be something, but when it's bad, that's the time you can react. But before that, look, just stay even keeled. And plus, you might be able to you will be able to make better decisions whenever you're not under tension, when you're not, drunk with the emotions. You can think, you can exercise discernment, you can exercise a dispassionate reasoning, right? And so he's really, really big, and so are all the Stoics, on sort of domesticating your emotions and keeping things in check and being even keeled.
Yeah, the way we think about it, our opinion about something, the way we imagine it's going to affect us isn't necessarily real, and that can be the thing that we're suffering through. So I love that idea too. And this is something that I had to learn the hard way in my own life. I will say that I was not good at this early on. And even now, something will happen and I'll be very disappointed and we'll be like, why did that person do that? But then it's my job is not to guess or to try to make up the story or decide what it must have been. But a lot of times it's just like, well, I just don't know. I can't know. So I've just got to wait and see if they'll let me talk to them, or you know what I mean? But don't make up your story, your idea of what you think the whole thing was, because this is what a lot of times people do.
Yeah, because you may find out later on that it was completely opposite of what you thought, and then you're relieved. But then you just spent how many days, hours, months, or whatever, just dwelling in that unnecessarily, and then stress takes its toll on your body, and then you can't focus on other things. Again, just keep things in check. Control what you can control. It may be the case, yes, that it's bad. It may be the case that this person, wronged you in some capacity. But the time to think about that and deal with that is whenever that's been revealed to you. Do not get overly anxious about it. Think, iterate, move for action, right? And that's what the Stoics are all about. That.
Yeah, I love it. Really try to stay in the present moment and don't make up the stories and embellish anything if you don't know. And this is something I think that is a habit that you have to sort of catch yourself on. And this is one of those things in my life where I got good enough at this where I could go, oh, I'm doing that again.
Yes.
Wait a minute. You don't need to be, you don't know. Let's not. So, sometimes I felt like I was really making progress in dealing with these principles in my life when I started to recognize when I was veering off from one. And I could catch it and bring myself back in. That's when I felt like I was doing it.
This, to me, of all of them, is one of the hardest to do, right? It's simple, but it's certainly not easy, right? Because we want things to work out so well. We want things to be perfect with our plan and how we plan things. However, it doesn't work that way. And people, this is where I find when I try to exercise a little bit of stoicism with other people, they get a little bit upset. Like, well, how do you know, or how you're diminishing what the feelings that I have with this particular situation. And my response is, well, no, I'm not diminishing at all. It may be bad and it's worth exploring. It's worth putting some time into. But right now, you just don't have all the information. You don't know what's going on. You're prognosticating, you're thinking, you're projecting, but you really don't have an understanding, right? Just let it play out, plan, and then make an assessment when the appropriate time comes by. To me, I think this is one of the hardest ones. And you said it, but even for me, it's hard. It's so hard to do.
Yeah, but again, we come back to those first principles we were talking about at the very beginning of this conversation, which is, okay, what can I control, what I can't, where do I focus, Where do I put
Yeah.
my energy, and what the rest of it do I just let wash over me like that cliff in the water?
Yeah.
It's just rolling off of me. I'm going to be that solid rock.
Yeah. Awesome. Next one, he talks about narrowing your focus, right? Marcus always asks himself, in fact, throughout the meditations, he's always asking himself, is this essential, right? Is this something I need to be doing right now that is going to help me get to where I want to be on a macro goal or a micro goal? Is this something that I have to worry about at this moment? So you think about, waking up again, owning the morning. What do you do when you wake up in the morning? Most people they doom scroll on social media, right? Or they engage in bad business practices that may be a waste of time, things that don't really matter, and that's not compatible with their goal of being a successful business or an entrepreneur, or with us dealing with drill writer, as drill writers deal with different bands. Is this essential? Do I have to worry about this right now? Is this something I need to worry about at all? But saying no to things, direct your efforts properly. He was really, really big on that. So basically shedding, pruning the things that don't matter. Anytime you say yes to something, that's a no to something else, right? And vice versa. And you don't have to say yes to everything, right? You have to determine the things that you are the most important to you and prioritize. Those are the yeses, and the other things, they can just be, you have to get comfortable saying no to people. You have to get comfortable saying no to different things and quote unquote letting people down.
Yeah, and I think that this to me was one of the most powerful things in the
Mm-hmm.
book, and one of the most big concepts I'm thinking of right now. I'm really spending a lot of time. I've started this new life. I'm changing where I'm spending my time and how, and I'm spending a lot of time. What's important to me? What do I want to spend my time
Mm-hmm.
on? What do I not want to spend? What have I stopped doing? What have I stopped taking time for? And this is really important stuff for people to stop and think about. Going back to your point of starting the day and claiming the morning, right? I felt like this is really important for me, as we have decided here in my household, like we're going to do something that brings us joy, that's important to us to start our day, right?
Right.
I'm not going to just start looking at emails. I don't even necessarily need to start, like you said, doom scrolling, looking at the news, whatever. Like, let me pull up that book I'm working on and
Yep.
jot some things down. Let me read some inspiring literature. Let me do something for me to start my day right. And just we go right back to that, get your mindset correct for the day. Everything else is going to go better. So I'm sort of reiterating that point
Yeah.
in what you just
Well,
said.
and you do better work, right? If
Oh,
Seneca has a quote. He says that he who has no harbor, for the one who has no harbor, any wind will do, right? So basically, if you don't have a destination and you're sailing on the ocean, any wind, you can take you anywhere you want, and it's fine. But the one who has a harbor, a destination, that's where they're going. That wind is going to do for me. This is the wind that I need, and this is the direction that I have to go. It's really, really powerful. I think it's a powerful way to basically get things done and being intentional.
yeah, I think a lot of people don't do a lot of time thinking about this, or
Mhm.
being intentional, or having those goals, or ideas of where I'm headed. I feel like some people just sort of see, well, I wonder what's going to happen to me today, right? And
Yeah.
what happens to you is just whatever might happen, because whatever
Yeah.
the world's going to bring to you. So having that intention and having these principles of living a virtuous life in place will
Mhm.
impact everything that happens in your day.
Yeah, absolutely. I got two more. If you want me to
I
go
love
through them
it.
here.
Yeah.
So the next one, they were really big on seeking discomfort. So Marcus Aurelius talks about the horse race. He talks about, hey, instead of using the dominant hand, use the non-dominant hand. Get out of your comfort zone. Train that side of your body. Train things that you wouldn't normally do. Do hard things. It keeps us humble. It keeps us hungry. It keeps us young. Those are instead of always doing the comfortable things, get out of your comfort zone. Go find the fringes of your comfort. You don't have to go like all the way and go skydiving tomorrow, right? But go to the fringes of your comfort zone and just take a step across it. And then the next day, take another step. And then pretty soon you start expanding that, and the benefits are incredible.
Yeah, two things come to mind right that. Once, we've already talked about the
Yeah.
benefits of going to the gym and exercising, and that's all about being uncomfortable. What you find once you become comfortable in the gym is you find that discomfort and any
Yeah.
pain that you feel, any struggle and stress, feels good, because you recognize what it's doing for you, and it's part of the process of the goal. So
Yeah.
I like that a lot too. The other example that came to my mind is, as we discussed before we started our conversation here, is I am very busy learning Portuguese. I now live in
Yeah.
Portugal. I want to be able to talk to all the people around me. I want to be a good citizen. And so I am back in school. We have a tutor twice a week. I'm doing homework, and I am terrible at it. My husband and I figured that together we have the combined vocabulary of perhaps a toddler, like we can, we're getting there and we're getting better every single day. But it has been challenging for me to be so bad at something that I feel like is so important and that I
Right.
want so very badly. But I also recognize that the process of struggling and being bad, but continuing to work through past that is so valuable, and then that struggle, sort of like learning to play a musical instrument, learning a new skill in a sport or anything else you want to do, that struggle at the beginning and learning and getting better and better and better, that is part of what brings the joy at the end when you get there.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you have to, if you want to expand and get better at something, you have to push yourself. I mean, back to the gym example, if I just walk in and do the same weight I've been doing, or even less weight, that doesn't do anything for me, there's no tearing of the little muscle fibers, there's no rebuilding, there's no growth there. I have to go in, it's progressive overload, right? So the idea, I have to do just a little bit more, whether it's more weight, more reps, time under tension, less time in between reps. I have to do something that's going to progressively overload. So you just take that idea of progressive overload, just map it onto your entire life. Find other ways you can progressively overload as a father. Find ways you can progressively overload as a teacher, as a businessman, whatever it is. Just find another way to just continue to expand, because then when you start expanding out, what happens is the net that you're casting also grabs everybody else around you, and you begin to lift other people up within that expansion. I think that's super, super cool. I think about me just as a dad, right? If I'm a better human being, I'm a better husband, I'm a better father, the residual effects with my family are really, really powerful. They're exponentially powerful. I'm setting examples. I'm setting the standard. I'm doing way more for my kids than just, coming home and sitting on the couch and not doing anything, not being helpful, not engaging with them. But like, there's some days I'm tired, but no, I can't. I got to just expand that, overload it, be intentional, be with them, help them out, all those things. So the residual effects are powerful, I think, when it comes to that progressive overload idea of just expanding your comfort zone.
And those are the obstacles that become the way, right? It's another great way to really say everything we've been saying, which is all of those struggles and learning to embrace that pain and the struggles and the challenge. You realize that those are the way to become a better person, a better dad, a better, stronger.
There's no other way. Yeah, there is no other way.
It's how it works. It is how it works.
But the gym is such a great example. Like, I just have to. I'm going to cut you off, but the gym is such a perfect thing. Like, there is no other way to get stronger. There just is no other way. You have to get uncomfortable. It has to suck, right? Embrace it. You have to in order to grow.
Right. But the point is, it's your mindset, your concept around that is the key here. This is what we're talking about, is rather than saying, oh no, I've got to go have pain in the gym and struggling. And instead you're like, bring it on, because the struggle is the way, the obstacle is the way. I'm going to embrace what that requires of me, because I understand all the benefits and how I'm going to grow and be a better person. And so if you flip that, if you start to recognize that the obstacle is the way forward for you, all those challenges and the pain and the difficulties are the way forward that's going to make you a better, stronger, more productive, more joyful person, then it's no longer like the obstacle is a horrible thing. You learn to embrace it as the thing that's going to help you grow and have a better life. And I think that's the whole premise here, is that the gym is a great example that's very, familiar to both of us. Like, you learn to love that process of the struggle and the pain and the pushing past your limits, because you know what it's doing for you. And so you embrace it. And we're asking you to do that in every aspect of your life.
Yeah. And that's what the Stoics are doing. They're asking you, they never used the term progressive overload, but that was like essentially what they would all say, okay, that's the word. Absolutely. Progressive overload, everything. Just expand, right? Don't get too comfortable. Keep pushing outward. So it's really, really powerful. All right, last one. The idea of memento mori. And Marcus Aurelius talks about this. He says, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you say, do, and think. And Marcus Aurelius experienced death probably more than any emperor did in the Roman time period. He half of his kids died. His father died. His brother died. Everybody in his family. He lived through one of the worst plagues in human history, and he never let that sway him. He always said, every single thing that I do is just always in service of knowing that this is short and it could end right now. Live right now as if I don't have another breath. What kind of person do I want to be remembered as? Super, super powerful. Again, we're talking about the leader of the free world. We're talking about somebody who could do anything they wanted, and he still disciplines himself and distills it down to, look, at the end of the day, I'm just like every other person. No one is going to escape this alive. This is where we're all going. And so he was very, very intentional about do everything right the same day, or do everything right, do the same things right every single day, because you never know when it's over. You don't know when you're going to take your last breath.
Yeah, and that keeps you humble, and it gives you perspective that you have to have, because it's very easy just to get wrapped up in the drudgery of day-to-day living and forget the bigger concepts. And what he's doing is always starting his day well, getting the concepts in mind for the day, and then always remembering, that bottom line. Look, this could be it. So, do you want to spend it worrying and wasting your time and holding grudges, or do you want to live and grow and contribute and make a difference and live a happy life and impact those around you in a positive way? It's just an approach to going through your day that's very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so the memento mori, it's just a famous Latin saying, that this life, it could end, and it's going to end, obviously, but live every single day, just live it and go for it. I just think that's really powerful. But these two books, again, these things are they're quake books. I call them, because they quake you to your soul. They're so good at just awakening, the dogmatic slumber of just going through life, treading water instead of living intentionally and living the good life.
I've mentioned that I feel like I've seen you sort of really grow and blossom during the time that we've had our friendship going here. I feel like I'm guessing that you would say that these principles were a key part of sort of learning this sort of paradigm for how you're going through your day and your life have been essential.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's everything. It's how, just like everybody, there are weekdays, and I don't want to do the things that I have to do, right? It's just hard to do it. But then I remember I have a job to do. I have a breath today. I'm alive. I think about, for me, is about putting things in perspective. I always think about, there are somebody's out there who would take my absolute worst day in a heartbeat. They would do anything to have my absolute worst day. So that's a starting point for me, just to realize just how fortunate I am. So and that's a Stoic principle. I mean, these things are just embedded in Stoicism, captured best in Ryan's book and Marcus Aurelius's book.
Well, thank you for having this conversation. You're an inspiring figure, I think, Jonathan. You're living productively. You're making a difference out there. You're living from these principles, and it really shows. And so, thank you for taking time to have this conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
Likewise, you're a lot of inspiration, to me. We've had conversations for the last 6.5 years or so, and it's always been fruitful. Always been a way to reflect and really challenge. It's how I think and how I do things. And honestly, it's just being in the presence of somebody else who embodies these principles, right? And really sort of pulling you along and living up to those sort of standards. I think it's really, really powerful.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being that in my life. If I could have any part of that in yours, that's wonderful. I've enjoyed the friendship we have, and I love this conversation. Thank you.
Absolutely.